church. Praise God.
Good morning and shalom. It's Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving week, and you know we're Jewish, so we are people of traditions. It's tradition for us to come to this area. Turned out since like 12 years probably now. Yeah, first time we been to this place, to this town or city, whatever you want to describe it like. We've been here 2006, and it turned out to be a great place of blessing for us and for our family. At that time, our children were very little. Now, this place is the place of our family reunion. Because our older daughter, she studies far away from us. And actually, the last time before Flagler Beach, we seen her in August. So it's a great place of blessing. It's like meeting place, appointed place, and we're very grateful having friends in your church, and we're very thankful to God that your church supports us, and we, while coming here, we know that we are coming to us in a certain way, coming home.
Amen.
It's probably like, let's say vacation home. We love it here. We experience here usually the best time of the year, the best time of recreation and refreshment. And Thanksgiving week, although we are not Americans, is the week we are passionately waiting for the entire year. So now driving back away from here, already on the way, we will be just willing to come back. Well, God's willing. We live in His hands. But thank you for being our friends, supporters. Thank you for welcoming us in your church, in your hearts. And some of you we know since long time. Terry and Deborah Vannoy, we became very good friends. And with Dana and David Vannoy as well. It's a blessing. Well, Pastor David asked me to share about the ministry, and it's sort of challenging because I even don't know what to start with. It's so many things going on. With the sermon, it's easier. You have an outline, like beginning, the body, and the conclusion, so everything is there. In different traditions, there are different types of sermons, but anyway, at least you have a structure. Right now, I have just a bunch of material. Let me start from some fun experience this morning. Fun because I was laughing on the way here. First, I was very nervous. I couldn't find the church on the map, on the Google. That was, I don't remember when the last time that happened. So I entered the church and I know the name. So I confirmed the name with Terry, and I entered the name of the church, and I just already my hands are shaking because we're getting late, and I know that Pastor David doesn't like that. So I'm entering the name of the church, and it finds it. And then I notice it's in California. And it was like, really?
You've been here 3 times.
I know it's my third time in this location, but look, my brain is not functioning any longer to find it by memory. There is Google, So I thought that it's all okay as always. You type it in, it's there. So thanks that Terry sent me the information and said that there is another church that is on the map, on the map because it's on the rock. Right? Is it the right name? Okay, good. So I just like, but on the way there, I remembered what I read in one book yesterday. And there was a short anecdotal story about Billy Graham, the great evangelist, asking a little boy how to get to a post office in the place he didn't know how to get to the post office. And the boy explained him how to get there, and Billy Graham bowed down to him and said, you know, if you want, come to the convention center tonight, I will tell you how to get to the heaven. And the boy said, no, I don't think I'm going to be there. You don't even know how to get to the post office. So I'm just like, what can I preach to you? I even don't know how to get to your church. With a Google Maps. Anyway. Well, for those of you who doesn't know me, I'm not going to tell whole my testimony, but just a brief story. By the way, my testimony is online as a video, and I found Shalom, or I met Messiah. So you just like see the short 5 or 6 minutes professionally done my testimony. Can you imagine they sat me and interviewed me for 2 hours to come up with 6 minutes testimony? Well, anyway, it's professionally done. Now it's more amateur one. So I was born in Kiev, capital of Ukraine, in a liberal Jewish atheistic family. So I'm the 3rd generation of Jewish atheists. My grandparents didn't believe in God. I didn't. So my parents hasn't believed in God, and I didn't believe in God at that time. Well, I struggled as a Jew. And I could not understand why is it so tough to be a Jew in the country where anti-Semitism was embedded in all areas of life. And struggling as a Jew, I was trying to find contact with Jewish children first, then with Jewish young adults. And as I was a student at the university in Kiev, the former Soviet Union began to collapse, and I became a very strong Zionist, experiencing the freedom of that season for the Jewish people to leave the country that many of us hated so much. So I moved to Israel with an assumption that I will find an absolute happiness there. I thought that everything I need is everything I need to be happy is to be in Israel, among other Jewish people, to leave this country, the Soviet Union, and to come to Israel and be with other Jews. Well, in Israel, as I arrived there, a couple weeks later, I realized it's not enough. I was not happy. I was not fulfilled. I was missing something. I couldn't understand what that was exactly, but in Israel I believed in God. And it happened instantly at the Wailing Wall. As I came to the old city of Jerusalem, and if you've been to Jerusalem, you know where it is located. If not, possibly you saw the Wailing Wall or western wall of the temple on the pictures. So I came to this wall for the first time, and that's like a Zionistic dream coming true. I reached the destination. That's the place I should be as a Jew, and my Zionistic destiny is fulfilled. So I touched the wall and instantly believed in God. It was like electricity struck me over like a second. There is God, no doubts. I could literally see him sitting on the branches growing out of this wall. It was not a question, what God? I'm Jewish, so the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I even haven't considered other gods. So as I had to make a decision, to stay in Israel, to go back to Ukraine for 1 year to finish my studies at the university, I decided to ask God for His guidance. Again, using the wailing wall. There is a tradition, you write a note with your desire, you said this note in the wailing wall, God reads all the notes, fulfill all the wishes. Sometimes. In my case, He did. In my question about His guidance for my life, I promised Him that I will never complain about what He was going to show me. You can relate to this, right? It's foolish promise, right? So the very next day He sent me back to Ukraine. I was complaining like crazy. I didn't want to go. My parents wanted me to go, but I didn't. Anyway, on the way to Ukraine, and it was on a ship from Haifa to Cyprus. There was no direct connection at that time, and no diplomatic relationship between Soviet Union and Israel. I got my first New Testament. So two young men came to me at night on the deck, and they asked me what language I read the best. And they said Russian, so they gave me the Russian New Testament. New Testament? I'm Jewish. It's just like, seriously? It doesn't work with me. But at the same time, I love books so much, I couldn't say no to a book. Even if they would give me a Quran, I would take it. Sorry. I'm honest. But anyway, for me, New Testament and Quran was just sort of similar in the way that it's not Jewish. So I took the New Testament, and it was pretty prophetic in certain sense. As I came back to Kiev, I met my old Jewish friend who, meanwhile, became a believer in Jesus, and he started sharing the gospel with me. And as I would, at that time, the gospel that he shared was not probably very politically correct and culturally appropriate at the moment, but it sounded approximately like this. You're a sinner, you go to hell, you got to believe in Jesus now, otherwise you're toast. So that was, for me, it was like, are you trying to offend me? I'm not a sinner, first of all, but also, don't use this fear. And Jesus? I'm Jewish. I'm not going to believe in Jesus. Do you want to know the reason why I don't believe in Jesus? Because I'm Jewish. It's just so simple. I mean, we don't believe in Jesus. I told my friend, you got sort of crazy, and just leave me alone. But at the same time, we're friends, and I'm observing his life, and his life is it changed dramatically. He seemed to be like forgiving, comfortable with his life, confident. He was like loving, peaceful, all the package, and I was so miserable. And I thought, it's not fair. He's my friend and he's doing so well and I'm doing so miserable. I need to change this situation by convincing him that he believes wrong for him to be the same miserable I am. I'm exaggerating a little, but still. I started a competition with him. I took the Bible and started reading through the Old Testament to prove to him that Jesus could not be the Messiah. And we argued like this for about a year. And then, slowly but surely, I got convinced that Jesus is the promised one, the one we as Jewish people are to expect and to accept. And I prayed in his name for the first time. It was a nice prayer, like written in evangelistic brochures, probably, or sort of. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember the prayer 30 seconds later. Father, if Jesus is not the Messiah, please forgive me, I made a mistake. I was afraid, scared about even praying in the name of Jesus. What will my parents say about it? My friends? There are only 2 Jewish people in the whole universe who consider Jesus to be the Messiah. My crazy friend and myself. It was not comfortable feeling. So it took for God 3 more months to put me in a situation where I needed him badly. I needed his help, his assistance. And for the first time in my life, I knew that I am a sinner. Now, we read the Bible, and we all know everybody is a sinner. I knew that. Everybody except I was not. I never killed anybody, never committed any crime, never stolen anything, as I say, for others to see that I'm stealing. I never used drugs or misused alcohol, so I was like, trying to please other people, like a Jewish angel on the outwards. But inside, I knew that I was such a hypocrite. I so much hate, unforgiveness, jealousy, envy, again, the whole package. And I knew that at that time I realized that I never committed any crime or never used drugs, not because I was so good, but because I was scared of the consequences. So much of the good. Well, I felt dirty. And I felt separated from God by that. And that night, it was at home, I was on my knees, and I was praying and trying to bring to Jesus. Yes, I'm emphasizing to Jesus. At that moment, it was not important for me any longer what will other Jewish people or my parents say about it. I was not afraid any consequences of believing in Jesus because I was passionately willing to get rid of the sin. So I was trying to bring to him all the sin. It was like a movie in front of my eyes that were closed, actually. And I don't remember how long it took to pray. But as I stood up, the heavy stone that pushed me down was leaving, falling down from my shoulders. And I felt like a bird. I thought I can fly. I knew that the sin is forgiven. And it changed my life absolutely instantly and dramatically. It was at night. Just let me give you a couple of examples. The very next morning, a few hours later, I came to the place I used to work. My colleagues couldn't find a hiding spot from me. I was chasing them, telling them that you got to believe in Jesus, it's the best, he forgives sins, it's the most important. Well, I haven't got fired at that time. I quit a few months later, but that's I will get there. But after work, the very same day, I went to preach Jesus on the streets of Kiev. Well, I haven't read the New Testament in my life yet. I never attended one single church service yet. I don't remember what exactly I preached, but people were getting saved. And the very same day, I came to a Messianic congregation in Kiev, and the very next day I entered the navigator's class and took this class for about a month. And after this month, I taught this class to the new believers. And then 3 months after I became a believer, I was trying to convince the elders of the congregation to let me preach. They said, no, smart man. They held to that for another month. And then I preached. They couldn't, I was like on fire, so no, they couldn't resist. So, and then like 8 months after I became a believer, I quit my secular job in order to be full-time in ministry, particularly among Jewish people. Now, you need to know Jewish people a little bit, or Jewish parents, to understand it almost killed my parents. As they found out that I believe in Jesus, it was sort of okay, just for a season. Like half a year later, it will be gone. But as I decided to ruin, quote unquote, my secular career in order to be a missionary, that was painful. Can you just, let a Jewish parent saying to their relatives, My son is the missionary. Doesn't sound well. Doesn't sound good. So, but nothing could stop me. So, like, I was less than a year a believer, and I planted the first congregation. It was, if somebody at that time could tell me, would tell me, you know, you've got to go to like a seminary, get trained, you're too young to do that. Yeah, I was young. I was 22 then, 23 years old. You're too young, you're not experienced, you're like, you know, if somebody would tell that, I would just smile and go. As later, I came back to Ukraine, ministered there, and I was 25 years old as God called me to go to Germany to pioneer the ministry among Jewish people there. And I got married just 2 months before we moved, and Ina got the same calling to Germany actually. Even before we actually met each other, there was already God's plan in play. And as I was moving to Germany, and I was a missionary with Chosen People Ministries, at that time, the leadership of Chosen People Ministries, they said, if you go, we're not going to support you because you're too young to go there. We cannot bring you to the country just by yourself, being so young and unexperienced. I said, okay, goodbye, I'm going. So I moved to Germany. They changed their mind as we were on the way there. Good for them, actually, because they participated in the blessing, and the blessing was huge.
Amen.
The blessing was huge because the 300,000 so-called Russian Jews and their family members were moving to Germany, making Germany the fastest growing Jewish community in entire history ever. I mean, in like 10 years, the Jewish community in Germany grew up in 1,000%. So in 10 times. And as we came there, at first I didn't know the reason. I knew that God is calling me there. And I even tried to oppose to God on my own. Just like, oh, I don't want to go there. I want to go to Israel. I felt like, I thought that I need to be ministering in Israel. And God was confirming me going to Germany. And then as I say, I decided it's better to go to Germany in a car, or by car than in a fish, you know, Jonah story. So it's better to follow his will. So we moved there, and there are 100,000 Russian Jews coming. And in whole Germany, there are probably a handful of people who share the gospel with them in the entire country. So it was our, I would say, hopefully not once in a lifetime, but a unique, a seldom chance to participate in starting, or in something historic, actually, in church history, even in Jewish history. So we started a congregation. It was like two of us, Ina and we started a congregation in Berlin. And it was like 2 of us, 4 of us, 5 of us, 7 of us for about several months. And then suddenly it came breakthrough. And many Jewish people started coming to our congregation. And only in Berlin, in couple of following years, there were like 300 people baptized, mostly Jewish. God placed a very strong revival among Jewish people in Germany in late 1990s and early 2000. And it was a tremendous joy to see God working in the hearts and minds of people, convincing Jewish people that Jesus is their Messiah, bringing them to the quality new life that will never cease.
Amen.
And they're just like, and several years afterwards, every conference I was invited, everybody was asking me just to share about what's going on in Germany. It was so unprecedented. And I was just like, I felt absolutely blessed to be on the edge of God's plan and God's work. Well, the situation is sort of different this day. The revival is more than a decade back, so it's not there among Russian Jews. There is a new wave of immigration coming to Germany. The Israelis. For whatever reason, there are 100,000 Israelis who hold German citizenship now. In the last 6 years, more than 30,000 Israelis moved to live in Berlin alone. I mean, not even talking of other cities. There are like 7 direct flights between Israel and Berlin on a daily basis. Israelis visiting Berlin, they come for shopping, and it's for them, it's like every day is a Black Friday in Berlin. They take a flight, like night flight, with an empty suitcase. It's 4 hours. You can book a round trip for less than $200. So they come with an empty suitcase direct from the airport. They go to a particular store in Berlin they love specifically. They fill the suitcase. They go back to the airport, and they fly back to Israel, even without taking a day off. So it's a great deal. I mean, they save thousands of dollars by doing that, because Israel is more expensive. And now guess where we place our book table? In front of this store. So it's just like, and all these suitcase Israelis they're passing. So we try to give them something for their suitcase, little, not heavy, and also something to think about while they are flying. Not during the shopping, they are preoccupied with other things, but 4 hours on the flight, enough time to think about. That's a different specific of the ministry now in Germany. We also God led us in a certain, or showed us the way that was pretty forgotten with some other waves of revival and or with strategies, and that's it's not like home groups, but it's like fellowship, eat and talk fellowship. It's not a fellowship for believers. But there are a couple of believers, like we form groups, like up to 5 people, 5 believers, to make friendship with the Israelis, for example, and to invite them for a meal, like Shabbat, Friday night meal together, and so the believers they prepare it. It's not offensive. It's very nice. Very comfortable fellowship, and the Israelis are coming. We have a great fellowship, good food, and there is always a spiritual discussion. And I remember, like a couple weeks ago, at one of these events, I was sharing the gospel so directly, almost like my friend in Kyiv back then. And then I asked the Israelis, "Are you not offended by me saying that so clearly and preaching Jesus so clearly?" And they said, "Oh no, we know where we're coming to." So they were ready to interact with that. And then the interaction is started, and it's Friday night, and we talk till like after midnight. And then I say, "Well, it's 1 a.m. I got to prepare the sermon for tomorrow morning, so I better go." They say, "Oh, please stay with us. We have more questions." It's amazing. And so that's it's the new strategies for the ministry, particularly in Berlin, but also in other cities. Right now, the ministry that we started back then, we have more than 40 staff members or 40 people on our team, ministering in more than 20 cities, different cities in Germany. And so we, the Beit Sar Shalom, House of Prince of Peace Ministry, that is partnering with Chosen People Ministries, affiliated with Chosen People Ministries, probably is the largest in Europe, and I would say globally that's it's a blessing. And so we plant the congregations, we start fellowships, we do evangelism, do discipleship. But there is a very specific need that I would ask you to pray for. Although it was not part of my life history, I do believe in theological education. Well, I got my theological education. I got degree, Master of Theology degree, and then I completed my doctoral dissertation. But it happened 10 years after ministry, being full-time in ministry. And I do believe that the new leaders or the future leaders, they need to get some training. But not just academic training. The training that is attached to a real life, the education that is relevant for their gifts and callings, and the education that doesn't take them out of their environment, but is getting to them while they're in their environment. And we envision it's an academy, it's like a seminary, or for Jewish people it would be called yeshiva. So we envision such a graduate school in Germany, and even to start this coming year. The need is huge, because if we are not going to provide a training for dozens of leaders and for the future leaders, in 10 years the Messianic movement in Germany will not be existent any longer. Because the existing leaders, they're almost like on the edge of being burned down. They need new content. They need some training. They need education. They need this for their spiritual development. But we face that it's more difficult for us to get a new emerging generation leaders to be involved in the outreach. So the school could help in this. And there are many challenges, because in Germany we are not going to get any accreditation through the German government. It's almost impossible. So we are looking for some schools to get accreditation through, and we are trying to create this curriculum and to create the program. And it's hard because we don't have particular finances to hire people to do that. So we have a team of 6 individuals. All of us were doing that bivocationally, sort of. So nobody of us is doing that because he or she is full-time. It's difficult, but please pray. The need is there. And even tomorrow, I have right after we arrive to Dallas, I have an executive meeting with the leadership of Dallas Theological Seminary, discussing the possibilities to get accreditation through them. And then Chosen People Ministries has a school in New York that is for Messianic studies, and they work with Talbot Seminary. And tomorrow afternoon, I have a conference video online call with the executive leaders of Talbot Seminary to discuss if there is a chance to get, or what the options to get accreditation through them. So I'm very much involved in this as well. So it's another hand. Besides of being leader of the mission organization, and then being a pastor, still a pastor of a Messianic congregation in Berlin, now I'm also heavily involved in the theological education, or starting the school. And besides, there is another head. I'm a professor at several seminaries, myself, visiting professor, and I'm still husband and sometimes even father, although end of this school year we are going to get, as you call, empty nested. Our younger daughter graduates from the high school in May, and who knows? Well, so I'm getting less of the father So this head is moved. I mean, you understand what I mean. I'm not going to be directly involved in what's going on, but still there are many other heads are coming. So Pastor David mentioned that that I was traveling a lot. In last 2 months, I traveled 20 times to different cities in 4 different countries on 3 different continents. And always like I'm wearing a different hat. Like for example, in Berlin, missions leader and a rabbi and evangelist and preacher and training new leaders. In Dallas, helping Dallas Theological Seminary to start an institute for Jewish studies. In Seattle, teaching at the meeting of Russian-speaking Messianic leaders in United States. And I'm giving an example. In Israel, in Jerusalem, meetings of the Christian and Messianic leaders in order to see how we can strengthen the unity between Jew and Gentile in the body of the Messiah. And then Panama City, never expected me getting there. There are almost no Jewish people. Maybe there are, but I don't know. But it's the triennial international gathering of the leaders of the seminaries, evangelical seminaries and schools. So I went there because another hand. So please pray for me as I'm traveling a lot, trying to manage many different things, trying to stay focused, although it may sound funny, but I try to focus on the heads that I have. I don't want to get rid of any of them, almost, because it's so much joy and fun to see God working through all this. And, thank you for praying for us. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for being part of our life and ministry. And I'm glad to have Ina with me on my side. Even here with me, we started our ministry with her in Germany. And I think I wouldn't be able to see so many blessings if she would not be with me in all this. And just in a last minute of conclusion, I can't resist to read something from the Bible, if I may. Otherwise I would feel sort of weird, speaking so long and not reading anything. Next week, the Hanukkah is coming, the Feast of Dedication. So in a week from now, it's a joyful celebration, joyful feast for the Jewish community, and particularly for children. There are presents. So for Christmas, you have just one day of presents, right? For Hanukkah, children get presents 8 days. So we compensate that. Almost all children. So we try to compensate for Christmas, in the Jewish community. But anyway, Hanukkah is a very nice feast, and for us as believers in Jesus, it's particularly interesting that Jesus celebrated Hanukkah. I'm not sure about presents, but he was there. And in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 22 and following, we read, "And it was at Jerusalem the feast of the dedication," in Hebrew Hanukkah. "And it was winter," naturally. "And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch." So for Hanukkah, he went to the temple. And there is something what people asked him. Then some Jewish people came to him and said to him, "How long would you make us to doubt? If you are the Messiah, the Christ, tell us plainly." That's a good feast for this question. And the words of Jesus afterwards are so encouraging. I'm skipping on his rebuke of the Jewish people. They don't believe. But in verse 27 and following, he says, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. Neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. My Father, which gave them me, is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one." What a great speech for Hanukkah. And in this sense, happy Hanukkah, happy Advent, and blessed Christmas. Thank you very much.